Happy St. Patrick's Day weekend, metalheads of the internet, and welcome to a brand new episode of the Metal Meltdown. Can you guess what argument I hear most often in response to talking about a particular album or band? Can you guess what I hear and read and see most often in the comments section below? Oh boy, I know the answer to this. There's "this band is gay and so are you," "this band is for hipsters and you are one," "this band is for soy boys and you are one," hipster, liberal, woke, vegan, garbage. What else? Give me 1 minute, I gotta get my notebook, I got a whole thing. You don't know anything about metal? I've been listening to metal since before you were born. You're a millennial. Stop making everything political. That's a fun one when you really don't got anything to say, you just throw that out there. Stick to Taylor Swift, stop ripping off Anthony Fantano, and delete your channel immediately or else. All classics in my opinion. Did I get it right? That is kind of correct. Those are unfortunately all excellent answers. Thank you, Thrash and Jackson. Yikes. Yeesh. But not the answer I was looking for. The thing I hear most often, or rather one of the things I hear most often, is that this band is a gimmick band, and therefore I hate them, I can't take them seriously, it's silly, it's cringe, real metal bands don't rely on gimmicks. Which, to be honest, isn't really true. Like, I love metal, there's a reason I made a channel dedicated to talking about metal, nerding out about metal, but I do feel like metal relies on gimmicks more so than any other subgenre of music. Like, I see way more gimmicky stuff in metal than I do in hip-hop, punk, country, or jazz music. Like, lots of metal bands go out of their way to do different, crazy, weird things in the studio and on the stage and on social media in this modern internet age to make themselves feel and look distinct, to make sure that they stand out from the crowd and grab your attention and convince you to buy merch or concert tickets or albums or whatever else. Like, look at Judas Priest. I mean, don't get me wrong, they got great music, but it probably also helped that on the live stage, they were adorned in this kind of like biker S&M leather daddy kind of fashion, and Rob Halford drove a motorcycle through a stack of amps. That's a gimmick. A cool gimmick, but a gimmick nonetheless. And like Tommy Lee playing drums upside down, kind of a gimmick. Alice Cooper decapitating himself on stage, kind of a gimmick. Rammstein uploading a music video to a porn website, kind of a gimmick. Like, come on, let's just be real for a second. This is normal, but I concede that there are some bands that are extra gimmicky. There are some bands that go the extra mile. They adopt some kind of very distinct theme or vibe. They base their music within a fictional world or universe or around a specific character. They dress a different way. They sound and talk and present themselves a different way. And today, because we are on the verge of St. Patrick's Day, I figured we'd do something goofy, silly. I figured we'd cut loose, do something a little gimmicky ourselves, and talk about some of these gimmick metal bands and how I and we feel about them. We're gonna talk about the best and worst full-blown metal gimmick bands. Oh, and since we're kind of on the topic of St. Patrick's Day, a reminder, we're hosting a St. Patrick's Day party and live stream March 16th, and you're invited. All of you are invited. It starts at 3 p.m. Eastern Time. We'll be streaming late into the afternoon and evening and possibly into the night. So pop on by, grab a beer, say hello. Voila, let's get into it. Best and worst metal gimmick bands. Hell yeah. Okay, so I've decided we're also kind of gonna do like a tier list, you know? Except instead of like S tier, A tier, B tier, you can see on the side here, genuinely great at the top, really fun, dumb but harmless, total gimmick band, and so fucking cringe at the bottom. We've got a lot of bands to talk about. We're going in alphabetical order because that's the way that the images were uploaded below. So let's start with Ailstorm, a pirate metal band fusing folk and power metal and heavy metal together, singing about pirates and pirate adventures and stuff. I wouldn't say that they're like a comedy band, but there's arguably elements of comedy in their music because it is just so over the top and so silly. Lots of like cheesy, corny pirate and pirate related puns. They covered that fucking I'm a Pirate song from the fucking Lazy Town show. The people in Ailstorm are unfortunately pretty fucking shitty, but, you know, credit where it's due. I think Ailstorm is good for some dumb fun now and then. Just straight up. You know? Next up, Amon Amarth, and though they take things a little bit more seriously than Ailstorm, there is definitely an argument to be made that they are to Vikings what Ailstorm is to pirates. Yes, they do pull a lot of influence from Norse mythology and folklore, and yes, they do write some genuinely pretty mean and gnarly melodic death metal, and yes, they put on a pretty great live show, but also, I mean, they sing about Vikings, they dress up like Vikings, they sell Viking merch, they've come out on stage in Viking boats and giant Viking helmets. And like, instead of a mosh pit or a wall of death or something like that, you'll normally see people kind of like lay down in the crowd and kind of like pretend to be rowing like a giant Viking boat. I'd say especially within the past 10-15 years, they've really embraced the idea of like the Viking gimmick as they become more and more popular, as they've played larger and larger venues. Now, I do also feel that in that same span of time, in the past 10 to 15 years, we have seen a bit of a downgrade in the overall quality of Amon Amarth's music. In fact, their last studio album, The Grand Heathen Army in particular, bored the fucking hell out of me. That being said, I think for the most part, I still feel comfortable putting them in dumb fun category, you know? Like, for the most part, it is just purely dumb fun. Kind of like Ailstorm, maybe, where you just have to ingest it in small doses. Alright, next up we have Author and Punisher. What's the gimmick here? Well, Author and Punisher is a one-man industrial and doom metal band that does not use traditional instruments like guitars, drums, bass, keyboards, and so on and so forth. Instead, the gentleman behind Author and Punisher has constructed a massive mechanical apparatus thing that he kind of like sits at, and he just creates all of these really heavy, weird noises live and in the studio, and that's what makes the metal. The amount of stuff that he's able to kind of do on the fly, from editing his voice to layering drums and guitars and bass parts, it's very impressive. Author and Punisher is so good at what they do that very often I forget that there even is like some kind of device or whatever, you know? I don't even really think of them as a gimmick band. They're just a genuinely great band that just executes their brand of metal in a totally different way. So I'm going genuinely great. Right at the top, love Author and Punisher. They rule. Next up, Babymetal. And when we talk about gimmick metal bands, Babymetal is almost always in the conversation. Babymetal was kind of put together, like early 2010s, I think it was, by like this J-pop management group kind of looking to get into like metal and rock music. So they kind of put this thing together, Babymetal, bringing J-pop and heavy metal and power metal and some progressive elements together into Babymetal, and it's very over the top, very stylish, very campy, but they treat it very seriously at the same time. I know a lot of people are turned off by the fact that there are pop elements at all, and I'm not gonna lie to you, I also think there's an element of racism and sexism because they are young Japanese girls, but I think Babymetal is genuinely really fucking fun, and I've seen them live, and they kill it. I saw them live with fucking Def Clock, and they brought the fucking house down. Like, there were motherfuckers in the crowd crossing their arms like, oh, I gotta sit through Babymetal to see Def Clock, and by the end of it, they were like, man, I had them all wrong. That was actually kind of fun. They've genuinely got some great fucking songs. Those girls work fucking hard on stage. Choreography, singing, crowd engagement, like working with the crowd, communicating with the crowd. They kill it, man. They're honestly great at what they do. You can whine and rant and rave, and you can whine and rant and rave all you fucking want, but honestly, Babymetal may be genuinely great. You know what? Fuck it. Genuinely great. I fuck with it. I got no beef with Babymetal. Next up, we have Cannabis Corpse. They're a death metal band that sings about weed and loves weed, and that's kind of it. I don't really have much more to say about them. Like, that's it. The music is fine, don't get me wrong. They don't have any outright duds in their discography, But, like, there's nothing about the gimmick itself that's especially interesting. It's a lot of the same puns over and over and over again. They're a bit of a one-trick pony. I will say I did listen to these guys a lot in college and in my early 20s. I do think at times they can kind of, they can kind of work for just some dumb fun. But at the same time, if I just want to listen to death metal, there's way better, way more interesting stuff out there, and the main thing that draws people to Cannabis Corpse is not the music, it's just the jokes and puns about weed. And I think that's kind of lame. I think that is a total gimmick, personally. So, no disrespect, but I think Cannabis Corpse is going in the total gimmick band category. If it wasn't for the weed puns and jokes, I really don't think anybody would be talking about them. Next up, we have Death Clock, a real-life band and also the star of the adult animated show Metalocalypse. The Metalocalypse cartoon, in my opinion, is still funny as fucking shit. The Death Clock albums themselves are really well put together, really well produced. I think Death Album 3 is unironically one of the best produced, like, melodic death metal records, like, of the past maybe 15 years or so. Death Album 4 was great too. I love Doomstar Requiem, so many great, funny, memorable moments in the story, and also so many great musical moments. Like, Death Clock, they're not really a gimmick band in the same way that maybe Babymetal or Ailstorm is. They're more so a gimmick just because of, like, the circumstances in which they came from. But despite that, they have turned into a genuinely really great band that also has all this other kind of crap going on. So for that reason, these guys are also going in genuinely great. I love Death Clock. Next up, we have Ghost, and much like Babymetal, these guys are almost always brought up in the conversation of gimmick metal bands, and I can definitely understand why. I think that the overall gimmick of Ghost being like a satanic rock band with like literally a satanic pope of sorts as the lead singer was much more interesting and powerful in its very early years, when there was more mystery surrounding Ghost and who everyone in the band was, who Papa Emeritus was. And that was complemented by not necessarily scary music, but definitely very spooky and ominous music that fit the vibe of this mysterious era, like Opus Eponymous and Infestus Sumam. As the band have gotten bigger and as they've toured more, and as more and more has become known of Tobias Forge and, everyone in the band, they've lost that mystery. The gimmick itself, it's more of a coat of paint at this point. Like, it's more so a vehicle to get to the music now, which is really the main star now. And coincidentally, the music is really, really great. Like, they've transitioned from doing, like, more spooky kind of occult doom metal and rock with some progressive flourishes into being like a full-blown arena rock band with like big production and synths and saxophones and big bold hooks and such. If we were talking specifically, exclusively about those first few years of Ghost, like the Opus Eponymous Infestus Sumam years of Ghost, I would feel comfortable putting them in the genuinely great tier. But looking at everything overall, I feel more comfortable putting them in really fun. Next up, we have Gwar, shock rock, comedy metal, crossover thrash, punk, heavy metal. Crew, what can you say about Gwar that hasn't already been said at this point? They're wild, there's a lot of political satire and commentary, there's a lot of, like, crude, violent, toilet humor and such, and they have weird stunts on stage, and every member is dressed up like some kind of Cronenberg Viking warrior multiversal superhero figure. And like when you go to see them live, you basically have to wear like a fucking raincoat or a poncho or something, because they spray fake blood and other bodily fluids all over the goddamn place. And like all of the Gwar characters have like lore and shit like that. They've had a Gwar restaurant, Gwar barbecue sauce. There was a Gwar barbecue and music festival for a long time in Richmond, Virginia. And the crazy thing is, when people talk about Gwar, I don't feel like anyone ever talks about the music. And that's because while the music isn't bad, it is secondary. Like, the spectacle of Gwar, the live show, the aesthetic, the fashion, the absurdity of Gwar, that is what's most important to Gwar. But in Gwar's defense, even if the music is secondary, even if it's not the thing we talk about when it comes to Gwar, it is still pretty solid. Like, their last couple of albums in particular have been pretty good, and I don't think people have I think people have written off those albums because Odorous isn't there anymore. Dave Brockie isn't there anymore. But, like, the Blothar on lead vocals era of Gwar has legit been pretty fucking good. Like, they've done a really good job at maintaining the legacy and integrity of Gwar and keeping everything that we love about Gwar intact. So you know what? Fuck it. I'm going really fun. Gwar's really fun. Gwar's really fun. They're great. Next up, we have Ice Nine Kills. Now, for those of you who don't know, the Ice Nine Kills, the band and the fan base, and I, have a fascinating and somewhat complicated relationship. Many a year ago, I dared to suggest that maybe Ice Nine Kills weren't the most unique band in the world. I dared to suggest that they weren't the first and only band fusing metal and horror together. I dared to suggest that it was too campy, too goofy, too over-the-top for its own good. I dared to suggest that they were misunderstanding the source material that they were referencing across the album consistently, and Ice Nine Kills, both the band and the fan base, responded by trying to make my life a living hell. The band went out of their way to try to get videos of mine removed from this channel, claiming I had violated a previously non-existent embargo. And I know that it was previously non-existent because I have the emails to prove it. There was no embargo for that album, Welcome to Horrorwood, Silver Scream, I think it was called. And y'all simply decided that there suddenly was because I was talking shit. Meanwhile, the fan base insisted that I was a poser and an elitist simultaneously. They told me they would cancel me, they would make sure that I never uploaded another video ever again, and they also insisted that I was an ableist while ironically referring to me as an R-word, an ableist slur. Now, if the band and the fan base would like to attack me again here today, by all means, go for it. I don't care. It doesn't matter. I'm not going to change my mind, and I'm not going to back down. The only reason y'all are as popular as you are is because of the horror movie references. That's it. Y'all are going in the so fucking cringe category. I don't care. Cry, bitch, cope, moan. I don't care. Bring it on. Next up, we have King Diamond, an all-time metal god and icon, and an absolute gimmick metal king. No pun intended. Okay, pun slightly semi-intended. And I don't mean any disrespect. I like King Diamond. I like the stuff he's done with Merciful Fate, and I like the stuff he's done as a solo artist. But let's just be honest here. From his over-the-top, circus-style, operatic vocal performance, to the face makeup, to the fact that he, like, goes out of his way to set up his stage to be, like, a haunted gothic castle, it's objectively pretty gimmicky. But this is not a problem. This has never bothered a lot of y'all, because it's a good gimmick. Because it's fun. Because it's cool. I mean, sure, King Diamond's vocal theatrics, you know, pretty hit and miss, pretty love or hate, but like everything else, I think we can agree it's kind of cool, you know? It occupies a territory similar to those early years of Ghost. And I mean, it's worth noting that like everything King Diamond did kind of paved the way for bands like Ghost and many other kind of like doom, occult, kind of shock rock metal bands that have popped up over the years. I don't love King Diamond per se. I think his best years of like music and making music are far behind him, but I mean, the gimmick, the aesthetic, it still works, it's still fun, it's still cool. So honestly, we're going in the really fun category for King Diamond. He deserves it. Next up, we have Lordi, also known as the Poor Man's Gwar. That's almost literally everything I have to say about Lordi. Like, that's it. Their music is really bad, really corny, really cringy. There's nothing about their visual aesthetic that is interesting. The fact that they have costumes and makeup and shit, that's it. That's the gimmick. That's as far as it goes. They have yet to do anything that has interested me on any level. So fucking cringe. Like, they just suck. They just suck so fucking hard. That's it. Moving on. Alright, next up, Necrogoblicon. I was not a huge fan of their previous album, The Fundamental Slimes and Humors, I believe it was called. I do think it had some interesting ideas, but I also think it tried too hard to be too many things at once, and I don't think it was very well produced. I think that the Goblin gimmick itself is a little tired, especially because the Goblin is just kind of like a hype man. Like, he doesn't really do much live on stage. Like, I think only very recently they've decided to finally have the Goblin character actually do, like, live vocals on stage alongside, I think, the guy from Infant Annihilator. I think it is, and that's cool. Like, good, finally, giving that motherfucker something to do. I will say the Goblin character in general is kind of an interesting and fascinating little mascot. Like, he occupies a territory, like, I don't know, not quite like Eddie from Iron Maiden. You know how like Gwar have like a manager and you can like book like interviews and shit with their manager, but he's basically just another costumed character? That's kind of what the Goblin character is. Like, he has a podcast and he interviews like social media stars and other comedians and shit like that and other musicians. And like, he has a weird thing about like Chili's restaurants. Like, he loves the fucking Chili's egg rolls or whatever the fuck. And I mean, I'm not gonna lie, as dumb as the first couple of records are, I did have some fun back in the day getting real fucking high listening to some of those fucking records. It's tempting to say that Necrogoblicon are a total gimmick band. It's also tempting to say that they are kind of in small doses dumb fun. I think with that in mind, we're gonna go like dumb but harmless. You know, they're just dumb. You know, they can be fun, they can be cringe, but like, you know, it's whatever. I ain't got no beef with Necrogoblicon, not really. Now, y'all know we couldn't talk about gimmick bands without talking about Psycho Sinner, the brainchild of Jeremy Spencer of Five Finger Death Punch fame. He was hoping this was going to be the next big thing. He had this whole shit planned out. He had the character of Devil Daddy. He released some raunchy, not safe for work pop albums as Devil Daddy. Then he made Devil Daddy the lead singer of Psychosexual. They release an album called Torch the Faith. It gets bombed. It gets fucking destroyed by critics and metalheads all over the world. He relaunches Psychosexual a year later as Psycho Sinner, releases 9 more albums, and they're all terrible for the same reasons that Torch the Faith was, but Jeremy kept doubling down and releasing all these cringe videos, and it was sleazy and gross and icky, and it was so fucking cringe and a total gimmick, and I loved it. I love it. I mean, I hate it. I hate it so much, but also I kind of love it. Like, it's just so funny. Like, I could unironically put Psycho Sinner in every single category here, and the people who know Psycho Sinner, at least who know them the way that I know them, would understand completely. They really are so bad that they're good, that they're funny, unintentionally, ironically so. I mean, they had songs where Devil Daddy, which was Jeremy Spencer in a red latex devil suit, creepy and sleazy as fuck, was ranting about cancel culture and telling people to jump off bridges and kill themselves. And, you know, he had a song where he called people cupcake fucks, which feels like a homophobic slur. I don't know for sure, but it just has that energy. He had songs where he fantasized about stalking and abusing women. There was a song, Let the Sin Begin, which was like a total ripoff of Young Americans from David Bowie and the overall cadence and flow and the same kind of beat. Then there was like a weird mashup of Creedence Clearwater Revival and Rage Against the Machine for no fucking reason. And Jeremy put so much money into marketing and social media. He had all these skits, all these videos, and he was just gobsmacked that people just hated it. He couldn't fucking believe it. It was funny. It was awesome. A beautiful time and era. I mean, it's so fucking cringe, but it is so fucking cringe in the best way possible. Next up, we have Sabaton. What's their thing? They love war. They're history nerds. They're a Swedish power metal band, and every single album is about a war or the struggle of war in general, a specific period of history, and the war that was in it. War is in and of itself a pretty common topic within metal, but I mean, Sabaton take it to the next level. I mean, Joachim Broden himself as a vocalist just sounds like a wartime general, belting out commands for the troops, you know? And I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I don't love every Sabaton record, but I've seen them live. I think they kill it. I think Careless Rex is unironically a great album, like one of the best power metal albums out there. Like, that was a lightning in a bottle moment for them. So I think, I don't know if I'd say really fun because I don't like their music enough, but I will say dumb fun, you know? Like, if you just want some goofy, cheesy, over-the-top, triumphant-sounding power metal, they fit the bill quite nicely. Next up, we have Sleep Token, who I feel are alternative rock and metal's answer to a band like Ghost. You know, like, everyone is anonymous, they have costumes, and, you know, their identities are hidden, except whereas Ghost is about, like, putting a silly mustache on the church, as Tobias Forge has put it, Sleep Token wants to do more introspective, celestial kind of stuff, like the basic concept gimmick of the band, if you will, is that, like, all of these guys are like avatars for some kind of ancient deity, and the songs that the lead singer, Vessel, sings are presented to him in dreams or some crap like that. Maybe I'm getting it wrong. That's what I'm remembering right now off the top of my head. Feel free to correct me. It's fine, I promise. The songs themselves are a mishmash of like alt metal, metalcore, prog, gent, pop, and contemporary R&B. I do not feel that they've done a good job at really creating consistent and cohesive material. I feel like Vessel, the singer, hams it up far too often. On earlier albums in particular, I mean, it was just so exaggerated and so hammy. He sounded like a dog with peanut butter on the roof of his mouth. I do appreciate how they try to blend all these different genres together, but so far it mostly hasn't really worked for me. I don't want to say that they're dumb, because I don't think that they are dumb, but I don't think that they're really fun, and I also don't think that they're, like, really fucking cringe or a total gimmick band, so I don't really know. For now, I'm gonna say dumb but harmless, with an emphasis specifically on the harmless part, you know? I really don't think they're that dumb at all. I think that they have the potential and capacity to do great things. In my opinion, they just haven't really done so yet. I think that they are carried by the gimmick, by the mystery of the band, and by the concept and philosophy of the band, and also by their fusion of sounds and genres. And I hope that the new album is genuinely really good. I hope that it is really, really fucking good. I would say that the single Emergence showed a lot of promise. Like, it's clear to me that they've been paying attention to a lot of the criticisms that have been levied towards them, so we'll see. Maybe in a couple months' time they get moved up. We'll see. But for now, we're putting them in dumb but harmless, with an emphasis on harmless, because again, I really don't think they're that dumb. And finally, we have Steel Panther, a band that at one point you could have called a fitting homage to glam metal, an appropriate satire and parody of glam metal, but now they just are a bad glam metal band. Like, they display perfectly why glam metal could not adapt in the 90s and why it did not survive when grunge, groove metal, and alternative rock became more and more popular. I don't think these guys are like really bad or incompetent musicians, but I do think that the music that they make is just utterly forgettable and unremarkable. Like, if it wasn't for the fact that they're making fun of and also paying homage to glam metal, I don't think a lot of people would notice or care. Like, if these guys went off and wrote a straightforward heavy metal record or a straightforward glam rock record without the comedy shit, I don't think a lot of people would notice. I don't think anyone would give a shit. They're more than welcome to prove me wrong. That would not bother me at all, but until that moment, I'm gonna say that they're a total gimmick band. Like, if it wasn't for the glam shtick, if it wasn't for the comedy shtick, holding up a mirror to glam metal, being a caricature of glam metal, I mean, there wouldn't really be anything to really talk about. So that's why I think they are a total gimmick band, and there's not much else to them. And I feel pretty good with this. Yeah, I don't like putting Sleep Token in the dumb but harmless category because, again, I don't think that they're dumb. Harmless with a capital H. But, like, where else would I put them? I don't think they're genuinely great. I really don't think they're fucking cringe. I don't know. I guess they're staying there. Overall, I'm very happy with this list. I think that these are the worst and best metal gimmick bands. How do you feel? What are some metal gimmick bands that I didn't talk about that maybe we should, that you want to talk about? How do you feel about how I've done all of this? Let me know! Your turn! Thank you for watching. Make sure you press subscribe so you get updates on the Metal Meltdown fucking immediately. Join us on Discord. Make sure to tune into our St. Patrick's Day party and live stream. And as always, you have yourself a fantastic fucking day.